Shall we start, Dr. Alex?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Gyani is also said to start. It's 4 o'clock. No, we always keep the schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Alex, and good evening and welcome to the participants of this webinar on COVID-19 vaccine. Is it a boon or bane? Being jointly organized by the Association of Healthcare Providers India and the Association of National Board Accredited Institutions, ANBI. We have three distinguished speakers: Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, Dr. Sanjeev Singh, and Dr. Sunila Garg. We have the distinguished presence of the president of AHPI and the president of ANBI, combined together, Dr. Alexander Thomas. May I now request Dr. Alexander Thomas to formally welcome the participants. And before that, I would like to acknowledge the distinguished presence of the Director General of AHPI, Dr. Girdhar Gyani, who will be summing up this webinar. Dr. Alexander Thomas, please.
Yeah, thank you, VC. And Anthony, just mute when somebody is speaking, mute the others. So thank you, and very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to all of you. On behalf of the Association of National Board Accredited Institutions, we are a network of about 600 hospitals which do postgraduate training in various specialties and contribute greatly to the training of specialists in our country. Also, on behalf of the Association of Healthcare Providers, we're a larger organization of hospitals all over the country, 20 state chapters and about 8,000 members. So on behalf of ANBI and AHPI, a warm welcome to all of you. If you look at today's situation, arguably the most discussed point probably today is it's not COVID, it's about the vaccine. It's about different types of vaccines. And more recently, should we get vaccinated? Should we not get vaccinated? There is so much of information and also so much of misinformation available with the present advances of technology in the social media and the media, etc. We have with us three very distinguished experts, nationally known experts. We have Sanjeev, we have Shuchin, and we have Sunila. And they will set the record straight and also be able to answer the questions that you have at the end of this session. On behalf of both our organizations, I want to welcome you, and I'm sure that the experts here will make it useful for all of us. Thank you very much, and back to you, VC.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander Thomas. Now, each speaker is provided 10 minutes to make his her or his presentation. And it is requested that the participants may kindly post their questions into the chat box. The first speaker is Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, and I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, who is the founder director of Ujala Cygnus Healthcare Services. He is a specialist in internal medicine and an alumnus of the prestigious King's College London and also from IIM Calcutta. Dr. Shuchin Bajaj will highlight to the participants the various COVID-19 vaccines that are available in our country. And with that, over to Dr. Shuchin Bajaj.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, and thank you very much for having me here. The host has disabled screen sharing for us, so if you could...
Now you can go ahead, sir. Now you can go ahead, sir.
You're being enabled now. You have been enabled.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So please do tell me when you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so see, the COVID-19 pandemic started very slow in India. So the country didn't register its first case till early March, right? So three returnees from Wuhan had tested positive, of course, in late January, but there were no cases between that and early March. India went down for a hard lockdown on 5th March, a day when it registered 90 new cases, taking its total to 657 cases with 11 deaths. The lockdown would go on to last for 68 days. And when it ended on May 31st, India had a total of more than 190,000 cases, with more than 300 deaths. The numbers, of course, soared after that to peak on September 10th when India registered 19,180 new cases. Fortunately for us, COVID also had a case of the nervous 90s like Shubman Gill and Rishabh Pant down under and refused to cross the 100,000 number, luckily for us, when we were assuming that the number would peak at around 200,000 per day. So, luckily for us, we were proven wrong, as have we been proven wrong in most cases related to COVID. The WHO recently put out a document saying that this number going down in India is due to the wearing of masks, which I assure is not, because we work a lot in rural areas. So nobody's wearing masks there, and nobody's wearing masks in the farmer protests that are happening right at the edge of Delhi. But the graph is still decreasing, so it's good. The daily caseload is now lesser than even 20,000, which is less than a quarter of the nearly 1 lakh cases in September. On the other hand, the cases in UK, USA, and Russia continue to grow, of course. This means that India now has only about 4.5% of the new cases in the world compared to about 31% in September. New cases were, I think, 2.6 million in September, which was more than twice the next highest number, which was about 1.2 million in the US. And now in December, the new cases were only about 745,000, which is way lesser than the US with 5.5 million and Brazil with 1.2 million, almost equal to Russia and Turkey, which have similar numbers, about 7.4 lakhs. This is mainly because India has not seen a second wave yet. And this makes it the only country among the top five most affected countries to have had only one wave. This, despite the fact that we've seen multiple potential super spreader events in the past few months, like Eid, then Diwali, then Christmas, then Bihar elections, and now the current farmer agitation going on. We've also been very lucky to have the lowest death rate at about 1.4%, which is much lower than Mexico, which is the highest at 8.8%, Iran at about 4.6%, and Italy and UK in the middle 3%, 3.5 to 3.2. So the next couple of years, the world's most wide for commodity will not be a metal, will not be a currency, it will not even be time. It will arrive in delicate glass vials, each with about only 10 ml of a very precious fluid, which is the COVID vaccine that we are. We are looking at making 20 billion doses in 2021. Uh, so vaccines, as we all know, contain an weakened or inactive part of a particular organism or an antigen that triggers an immune response within the body. And this time we've had newer vaccines which contain the blueprint for producing the antigens, like the RNA and the DNA vaccines that are coming out. And that will prompt the immune system to respond as much would have on its first reaction to the actual. So the vaccines have this time had an unprecedented timeline. It was only last January when the Chinese researchers revealed the first draft of the genome of the virus implicated in the Wuhan pneumonia outbreak. And within the first few months, we had the first clinical trials starting in March, and the first phase 3 testing beginning already in May, with the first Sorry, I think I had been muted. So I don't know how much you heard about the unprecedented timelines that we saw. So from starting from the first draft genome that had been revealed in January, we started the clinical trials in March, and in May we had the phase 3 trials starting, and in November Pfizer revealed that it was 95% effective. We had the first. Why is this unprecedented? Because see, vaccines, as we all know, have to go through multiple phases to develop and to show that they are safe as well as efficacious. So anything from preclinical phase to phase 5 usually takes 3 to 4 years. Sometimes it even takes decades. But we've been very lucky that with the high technology available and already the preclinical work having been done on SARS and MERS already, we were lucky that we had a lot of data around coronaviruses already, which we put to use in the development of these vaccines. So I am going to talk about the various types of vaccines that will be available or are already available. And then we will listen to our fellow speakers on the various combinations and the side effects and the beneficial effects. So the various types of vaccines that are available in the world are the most common being the inactivated vaccines, in which the whole virus is already dead, either through treating with chemicals or heat. So the dead virus cannot cause obviously the illness, but it can elicit an immune response to its core and to the outer coating, so that when the actual live virus comes in, the body already has antibodies against it and hopefully will kill that virus before it starts replicating. So the Bharat Biotech vaccine, the Covaxin that is in India, and the Sinovac, both are examples of inactivated vaccines. I hope they'll be very safe because we've already been using these vaccines for a long time. Rabies, the most common amongst them, the inactivated vaccines, has been around for years and years and has been very safe and very effective against a deadly disease. So, which has 100% mortality, rabies, as we know. So, these vaccines have been around for many years. This technology is not new. So, hopefully, very safe. The safest among the vaccines should be these two. Then there are the RNA vaccines which have been developed by Pfizer and Moderna both. They introduce an mRNA sequence coded for a disease specific antigen. And once this antigen is produced by our own body, it will recognize and trigger an immune response by our body. Then there is another vaccine called the protein subunit vaccine, in which the pieces of the pathogen often are fragmented to protein. So the virus is broken down and its spike proteins only are injected into the human body, so that we are not injecting the whole virus. So it will not cause any side effects or not cause the illness, because the whole virus is not there, only a part of the virus is injected. This vaccine will be produced by Novavax. Then there are the live attenuated viruses, in which the virus is not actually killed, but is just weakened so that it can produce a very little amount of illness. But of course, it will produce the maximum strongest immune response, because it is actually a live virus being injected. It's a weakened virus, but it's not completely dead. Then there are the DNA based vaccines, very similar to RNA vaccines. This will work by inserting the synthetic DNA of the viral gene into the small DNA molecules called plasmids. The cells will take in these DNA plasmids and then follow their instructions to build viral proteins, much like the mRNA vaccines. And this will be recognized by the immune system, and it will produce a immunogenic antibody response. So Sanofi and Inovio are the two companies that are working very hard to produce these DNA-based vaccines, which hopefully will be available to us before the end of this year. And then the most commonly used vaccine in India right now, which is the Covishield. This is a viral vector vaccine. So this is a part of the virus being injected into the human body by another virus, which is incapable of producing any illness in the human body. So AstraZeneca uses a chimpanzee adenovirus, which cannot produce any kind of illness in the human body. And then it mimics a natural viral reaction and triggers a very strong immunogenic response. So Johnson and Johnson as well will be producing a similar vaccine to what is being produced by AstraZeneca. So, as I said, there is an array of various vaccines, inactivated and weakened viruses, replicating and non-replicating viral vectors, DNA and RNA nucleic acids, and then protein and based vaccines. So these are the various types of vaccines available here, and number of them are in development. We of course are hearing daily about the viral vector vaccine, which is the Covishield, and the inactivated virus vaccine, which is the Covaxin, which has already been injected into more than 2 million people now in India alone. So the efficacy, experts estimate that in each trial about 150 infections will be required to demonstrate 60% efficacy with statistical significance. So speed of enrollment and rate of infection, of course, will determine when the efficacy data will be available to us in toto incomplete. We've had many controversies, as we've already heard, about Covaxin's efficacy data still not being available in entirety to us before the vaccination process has started. So the AstraZeneca Oxford trial started in May 2020 in the UK and South Africa, and then in June 2020 in Brazil as well. Pfizer and Moderna also started around July. They were the first ones to bring out their data in November. And Novavax, J&J, Inovio, CureVac, they've all started trials in various countries in the August and September, and hopefully will be approaching the regulatory authorities for approvals very quickly within the next 2 to 3 months. But we should keep in mind that these trials will continue till phase 5 trials till almost 2023. So the trials will keep continuing. This is only the emergency use authorization or EUA that has been granted to these vaccines. And this is how the authorization has come around in the various countries as well. So the Sinovac produced by Sinopharm, which is the inactivated vaccine produced by China-based company, is already in use in the United Arab Emirates and China a lot. The ruling family of the UAE has already taken this vaccine. Pfizer and Moderna, of course, have been in use all over the Western world. The royal family of England has already taken the mRNA-based vaccines, and so has the first family of the United States. Um, Epivac Corona already approved and being produced in Russia. Moderna already in use in US and Canada, and Sputnik 5 already in use in Russia as well. Uh, Developed in India, so Covishield and Covaxin, the two vaccines that are available in India. The first one is a chimpanzee adenovirus being produced at Serum Institute Pune in collaboration with AstraZeneca and the Oxford University. And Covaxin is an inactivated virus vaccine being produced by Bharat Biotech at Hyderabad in collaboration with ICMR. Zycov-D is a DNA-based vaccine being produced by Cadila, about hopefully to be approved and trialed by the end of this year. Sputnik 5, the human adenovirus, being produced by Dr. Reddy's lab in association with Gamaleya National Center, Russia. Phase 3 trials already underway. The protein subunit vaccine, again being produced by Serum Institute in partnership with Novavax. The recombinant protein agent-based vaccine being produced in collaboration with MIT, USA. Another mRNA-based vaccine by Genova Pune, which is, I think will be the next vaccine to come in. It is in very advanced stages. And the inactivated rabies vector platform, again being produced by Bharat Biotech, very similar to Covaxin, but the vector is a rabies vector in this. So all these vaccines are already in various stages of approvals, and hopefully as these are part of the 20 billion units that we will be producing by the end of 2021. These are the 4 vaccines that are most commonly in use, as I already said. efficacy and safety beyond all doubts, proven by the various trials in having enrolled thousands of patients. So again, as I said, these have been approved for emergency use authorization only. Full approval has only been given to Sinopharm and Pfizer in Saudi Arabia and UAE. Rest all countries do not have full approval yet. They are only EUAs at this moment. We have a pipeline of more than 280 plus vaccines all over the world in place. And hopefully we will have at least 20% of these entering into the final phase trials. This is where all the vaccines are being developed. India, of course, very proudly amongst the front runners of the race with 8 vaccines in very high stages of development already. So India is pinning our hopes on these 4 vaccines. As I said, 2 already out, and 2, as I said, in very, very advanced stages of development. One adenovirus and one a DNA-based vaccine. Hopefully will be in clinical use and production before the end of this year. The Zydus Cadila one, the DNA-based one, I think is up for approval in the next 2 months itself. So should it work out well, I think we will have the vaccine in place very, very quickly. So India's vaccine the colossus, I think, that we all need to follow. The problem, I think, will be in the logistics mostly. Because we are looking at 20 billion doses, but right now we are producing only about 12 billion syringes. So syringes will be another problem, and about 15% of these doses may be lost due to the cold chain and handling logistical issues. Of course, we saw much more being lost in the initial days because of the vaccine hesitancy. So January 16th marked the beginning of the Indian vaccination program. We should also remember January 13, which was a very important milestone because that marked a decade of India being polio free, which paralyzed almost more than 200,000 children every year till the mid 80s in India. There was only one case in 2011 on January 13, which was the last case that was recorded in India. And after that, we've been polio free. So we have a lot of experience in this vaccination program. You would all remember that in the final years leading to polio eradication, we had these, polio Sundays that were celebrated. We had more than 2.5 million vaccinators visiting about 200 million households to give polio drops to children on each polio Sunday at that time. So we've had a lot of experience also in the extensive universal immunization program that we run. We reach out to, I think, more than 26 million newborns and more than 29 million pregnant ladies every year who are given about 12 types of vaccines, 9 nationally and 3 sub-nationally. So a lot of experience there. There's the National Expert Group on Vaccine Administration for COVID-19, the NEGV-VAC. First met, I think, in August 2020. If I remember the date correctly, it was like 12th August maybe. And it has been meeting regularly to iron out the creases in storage, distribution, tracking, and administration, and monitoring for side effects of the vaccines. So I think we are in a good place right now. We've done very well, like especially in the PPE phase where we didn't have even 1 unit of PPE being produced before February last year to more than 450,000 units of PPE being produced every day now and being exported to various countries. So the model is established. It's very well in place. And I think we should be very confident that we'll be able to vaccinate everyone before the virus takes an antigenic shift. Thank you very much for sparing your precious time to come out and listen. Looking very eagerly to listen to the next 2 speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suchan Bajaj. I think we can take up the questions towards the end of the presentation. And we move on to the next speaker, Dr. Sanjeev Singh. Dr. Sanjeev Singh is a pediatrician by specialization and the Chief Medical Superintendent of the 1,300 bedded University Teaching Hospital, the Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences at Kochi. He will be speaking to us on the adverse events of immunization. Over to you, Dr. Sanjeev Singh, please.
Thank you, VC sir, and thank you, Dr. Girdhar Gyani ji and Dr. Alex for organizing this and giving us an opportunity to participate. Thank you, Dr. Suchin, for the fantastic and a very comprehensive presentation on vaccine. That was very informative. I'll be covering on AEFI, which has become very popular for the last 2 weeks. And speaking from the experience of getting vaccinated myself 10 days back, so it is just not a theoretical exercise. So as of now, 23,28,779 frontline workers vaccinated. And out of those, 16 have been reported as hospitalized. So that is 0.007% of the total people who have been vaccinated. There has been 9 reported deaths, but all of them have not been labeled to be vaccine related deaths. But the problem is that when we get information like this, and that is where we need to be together fighting it out and encourage people to get vaccinated. 2 Ayasha workers die days after COVID vaccination. And then we get a news like this. 2 health workers die, but then Telangana said that it is not linked to vaccine. But the damage is already done because that was a front page news, and that is where on day 1 of vaccination. Again, the first death which occurred in Moradabad, which came in the frontline news and was on day 2, the autopsy says that he dies of cardiogenic shock. So there has been a lot of damage which has already been done because of these news which was not carried well. And I think as learned and experienced role models and people who would practice medicine should take this forward to engage and invest in getting this done. Even not in India, even in the US, there has been a lot of information with respect to Pfizer-related adverse events, and it says that people were forced to look up to the term anaphylaxis as it was all over the news, and an impression was formed that the vaccination is risky. And then reports from Norway said that 30 very old ailing Pfizer vaccine recipients died. But then the next line says that the vaccine adverse event reporting system shows it is not true. So there has been faulty information, there has been fake news, there has been incorrect news, but what is really happening is could be a mild anaphylactic shocks, anaphylactic reactions, and not anything major. When you add a picture like this also, it is extremely difficult and it doesn't promote people to go for vaccination, though pain because of vaccination is not a major side effects. But then it covered the topic, which is very, very appropriate. Adverse event reported is just 0.08. What was reported on day 1 and day 2, it looked as if 50% of the people who are getting vaccinated are having adverse event of immunization. But then as the days goes by, we are seeing that there are more champions and there are more people who are taking vaccination. So WHO had recognized this phenomena of adverse event following immunization, and they labeled it as AEFI. And it is a very popular body which gathers this global information, and it falls under vaccine safety. So adverse event following immunization is any untoward medical occurrence which follows immunization, which does not necessarily have a causal relationship, which is very good to understand that it is important, but then it is good to report. The adverse event may be of any unfavorable or unintended signs, any laboratory findings, symptoms, or disease. And that is how AEFI has been classified. Now, it is not that that AEFI came into being or came into picture or into limelight only because of COVID vaccination. So Dr. Suchin mentioned about universal immunization program, And it has been there. It has been there earlier, and AEFI was a recognized form of reporting which used to happen. So BCG 90 to 95% had local reaction, and it has really worked so well towards may not be eradication but elimination of tuberculosis. MMR had 5% of local reaction and 5% had illness. Oral polio vaccine, which we are very proud of eradicating it, had less than 1% of illnesses, and then tetanus 25% of illnesses, which with any kind of injury we used to take left, right, and center. Hepatitis B, 15% adult and 5% children did have local reactions. But it's not that every vaccination which used to happen under universal immunization program was only minor. There were some severe reactions which was also reported. So there were deaths because of BCG vaccination, but that was only 0.19 per million. Oral polio vaccine, when it was taken, it led to paralytic polio, but then again, 1 in 2.5 million doses. Measles did have life-threatening anaphylactic reactions, but then again, 1 in 100 million doses. So though the frequency has been very limited, but it is an existing fact that every vaccine which comes into being, into practice, in implementation, does have a safety index in place. The safety and efficacy is tested, but then it would have, it's not 100%, it won't be safe, but it would have some minor reactions. So there are myths, but what we need to do is to do some reality check, and buck should not stop here. Are vaccines safe? The answer is yes. Can COVID-19 vaccine cause infertility? Again, it is the same. And I think Dr. Sunil madam would take more of the communication aspect, and it is the same issues which used to happen with all kind of vaccination program. It happened with MMR, it happened with polio vaccine. Are adverse reactions possible? Yes, but they are minor in nature. Can you still catch COVID vaccine with vaccine shots? You would. That is why the prevention is still indicated. Is it mandatory to get vaccinated if you want to be COVID free? Yes. Should people who have already had COVID-19 get vaccinated? Answer is yes, because we still don't know the antibody titer levels at for each minor, major, or serious illnesses. What happens if you're sick when you turn to vaccination comes up? If you have active disease, please look for the doctor's information and if it would be appropriate to avoid it. So Ministry of Health came out with this information on 14th of January 2021, where they said that they have tested 2 vaccines and they are coming out with the fact sheet. And then they did mention a comparative information with respect to Covishield and Covaxin. So both of which was already covered by the previous speaker. Something went wrong with respect to communication strategy, and one group claiming it to be higher or better than the other. And I think that was completely ill-informed group, or it was not mandated, and that could have been avoided. And then possibly some of the champions also did mention that they may not trust the other vaccine. So those are bad communication, but otherwise it's all safe and efficacious, and the comparative sheet is being shared by the government of India. So who should not take vaccine? So it has not been proven under age of 18, hence it is only recommended above 18. Pregnant and lactating women, the data has been very, very small. So that is why it has not been indicated, though COVID-19 coronavirus was not present even in the lactating mothers and in amniotic fluids. But still, since the data is, the quality data is not available, so it has been indicated. Anyone who had anaphylactic or allergic reactions to previous dose should not receive vaccine. Anyone who has an immediate or delayed onset anaphylaxis should not take the vaccine. Those who show active signs should take it after 4 to 8 weeks of recovery. Those who are on plasma therapy or on monoclonal antibodies should be watchful. Anyone with acute illness or hospitalization should not take the vaccine right now. And those who have thrombocytopenia should be cautious. So we need to be vigilant. So the special precaution which has been noted by the government of India and by the fact sheets of both the vaccines is that bleeding and coagulation disorder. Otherwise, conditions not contraindicated is if you are positive, if you have repeat infections, if you are reinfections, if you are RT-PCR previous history positive, you are immunocompromised, immunosuppressed, the contraindication doesn't exist. And this has been published in the New England Journal of Medicine as latest as 31st of December 2020, where they mention the efficacy of the vaccine and some of the minor systemic side effects. And fever and chills were observed from day 1 and day 2, and that is were resolved shortly. And that is, I think, very promising statement to make, and that is where all healthcare personnel, all champions should encourage and engage with people to take this vaccine. There has been a lot of talk on COVID vaccine and antiplatelet and anticoagulation therapy. And this is the British Society of Hemat Oncology, the Public Health England group, which has published this information. Patient on standard intensity anticoagulation with warfarin, where they have a targeted INR value of 2, they can receive an intramuscular injection. Only precaution which we need to do, since this injection is intramuscular, so we need to be watchful for those who have who are on antiplatelet and anticoagulation therapy. So more so for those who have undergone a recent procedures or on recent introduction of anticoagulants. Patient on maintenance therapy with direct oral anticoagulation can delay the dose on the day of vaccination, and they need not miss the vaccination dose. Patient on single agent of antiplatelet therapy can continue these medications without any adjustment. So that those are all very, very promising statements. And I think that is very important that this information should be transmitted. A patient on higher intensity of antithrombotic therapy, for example, warfarin with the target of greater than INR 3, basically should be managed on an individual basis, and it would be appropriate to seek information from the respective family physicians or the consultant. What needs to be done? Those who are on anticoagulation, antiplatelet therapy, wherever there is an intramuscular site, a firm pressure at the injection site should be maintained for 5 minutes, and that is, I think, good enough. Patients on full dose of heparin should be able to have this vaccine. So overall, I think there has been fairly good information which is available. So if there are adverse event, there could be minor, severe, and serious. It needs to be reported, and that is how the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has classified. How do we do that? There is step 1 that any report of AEFI should be informed on a particular case reporting format, and or else it should go to the district immunization officer. There is also a fantastic app which has been developed, which is CoWIN, and the moment you take that vaccination, the information comes to you, even the vaccinator's information comes to you, and you could easily report AEFI on those on the app also. WHO has a reporting format which has a section A and section O of reporting any adverse event following vaccination, more so for COVID right now. It could be done on the CoWIN app, your upcoming sessions, beneficiary list. So this is what is a vaccinator officer's module. And this is what your, when you give your 2 verification, Aadhaar plus PAN or any other information which is there, and there is where the information of the vaccinator comes to you, and you could report AEFI, and it need to be reported within 30 minutes. And that is where they have asked that all vaccination sites should monitor these patients post vaccination. How do you prevent AEFI? There needs to be a proper plan. And that is why the government of India have asked the session sites to keep patients being monitored 30 minutes post vaccination, ensure that it is done in comfortable and well-ventilated areas. And if at all people feel lightheaded and giddy, they need to be taken care of immediately. But patients who are anxious or nervous should be identified, and they should be reassured. So there are adverse events which are reported adverse events both for COVID vaccine and Covishield, and most of it is minor in nature. And that is what is the published information from letter the letter issued by Additional Secretary, Ministry of Health. So there are some special attention which needs to be paid by the stakeholders. Safe injection practices needs to be adhered to. For the reconstitution, they need to be extremely careful. Proper cold chain should be maintained, and screening of all patients who are coming for vaccination should be done very rigorously. So there are side effects worldwide. It is just not in our country, and that is what we need to disseminate. There is a reporting format. It can go in the CoWIN app or with the district immunization officer, and you would be taken care of. So stakeholders' responsibility is already highlighted by in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare guidelines. There is a national level reporting mechanism where they have created a AEFI committee. There is a state level information where a committee has been constituted consisting of neurologists, cardiologists, respiratory medicine. There is a district level reporting mechanism. So what government has done is phenomenal, and they need to be really congratulated for fantastic preventive work which they have done in, and putting a good implementation plan. But then there is a lot of work which needs to be done to communicate to every individual so that they participate. And this would be covered by Dr. Sunila Garg as a next presenter. Thank you very much for the patient listening, and I'll wait for any questions, if any.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev Singh. We now move on to the last speaker of the evening, Dr. Sunila Garg. Dr. Sunila Garg is the Director, Professor, and Head of the Department of Community Medicine and Sub-Dean of the Maulana Azad Medical College, Delhi. And she is also a member of the Global Advisory Group of WHO. She will be dealing with the communication strategies and the various government action plans that have been evolved to combat the misinformation about COVID-19 vaccine. Over to you, Dr. Sunila Garg.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my previous speakers. Thank you, organizers, Dr. Gyani, Dr. Alex, and all of you for this wonderful session which is being organized with regard to COVID-19, because there are a lot of things which are still, unsaid and uncovered, and people need to know. As we go more into the details of this, there are more and more information which we need to know about it. Now, as far as my task as a member Lancet Commission is concerned, and also, as a public health expert is concerned, to address the issue of vaccine hesitancy. So this is where we need to look at from the perspective of vaccine hesitancy, that what would be the communication strategy and what is the Government of India's approach and turnover with regard to that. So let me just go further, and I hope that I am audible and I am clear.
Very clear, madam, very clear.
Thank you. So if we are looking at, primarily what is communication strategy, communication strategy is the one that supports the COVID-19 vaccines rollout in India and seeks to disseminate timely, accurate, and transparent information about the vaccine, as has been told to you earlier also by my previous speakers, who spoke very lucidly about, the complete information about the vaccine totally available, and, what are the adverse events following immunization. And then we also need to alleviate apprehensions about the vaccine and ensure its acceptance, because which was very, very, obvious when we started on 16th of January, that there were a lot of apprehensions in mind of people, and virtually we were having 32 to less than percentage of coverage at each immunization booth before we revise our strategy. The strategy also seeks to build trust, enable greater confidence in the COVID-19 vaccine amongst all people by employing transparency in communication and also managing any misinformation, disinformation, and rumors around it. So that is another important part of it. What is the aim of this strategy? We want to support and encourage appropriate uptake of COVID vaccines. How? By managing and mitigating any potential disappointment expressed by unmet demand for vaccine or eagerness amongst people. So that is where also it is important that we need to look at the unmet demand also, because everybody has to understand that the vaccine rollout is in a phased manner, first for the healthcare workers, then for frontline workers, and the third is meant for general public, which is, above 50 years of age and less than 50 with comorbidities. And then we have to understand that we have to address vaccine hesitancy that could arise because of the apprehensions around vaccine safety and efficacy and any other myths and misconceptions. We do have to provide information on the potential risk and mitigate unintended crises. For example, adverse events following immunization, which are there in some of the clusters, and which were, obvious in Norway, etc., with regard to Pfizer vaccine and all. So we need to be very particular in looking at, what are the adverse events, what are the delays in vaccine rollout for certain population categories. And during the introduction and rollout, we need to provide complete information as to what time it is going to be rolled out from this particular booth, because not all the vaccination points have started the vaccination, simultaneously. Now, if we look at the strategy for building trust in vaccines, we have to use either the social influence or endorsements from experts and official voices to spell out the process of immunization, to emphasize on the safety and efficacy of the vaccine, and explain the decision to conduct drive in a phased manner. That is what we are doing now. And gradually, we will be expanding the immunization to the length and breadth of the country. And also, we will be, opening more and more vaccination points as well. And then the second point is that we will be establishing a national media response cell, basically at Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which will ensure preparedness through media monitoring and social listening and responding in real time. That is there. So that means, today if any event has occurred, so real-time information about number of doses given, in terms of state-wise, district-wise, we are all, and we are talking at the national level. Also, the briefing is done, and we unfold media and public discourse through monitoring of the print, electronic, and digital media. Then again, we are involving community mobilizers and frontline workers to engage with the community at various levels. And so, this is being done through community consultations, faith leaders, religious meetings, and engaging youth and civil society organizations, self-help groups like Panchayati Raj institutions and community-based platform, because we have to realize that India is not Delhi and Delhi is not India. So another thing which is important is that the vaccine rollout in Chhattisgarh, or vaccine rollout in Bihar, or vaccine rollout in Delhi, everywhere the people are different, the processes have to be adopted to the local situation, the areas are hard to reach. So that is where it is important to look at each and every session from the perspective of implementation. So what are the objectives of the communication strategy? That we want to ensure that all eligible groups receive the vaccine with confidence. So that is very important. What, earlier Dr. Sujit was also pointed out, quite a number of times, if we don't have confidence and if we come like this, so also it's the mental makeup which decides, about the uptake of the vaccine. All people should get correct information and are not influenced by either misinformation, disinformation, myths or misconceptions. As amongst the scientist community also, we are having debate about the efficacy and all that. And those of us who closely follow the vaccine development process, we will know, particularly with regard to various vaccines, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions which are there. Then again, hesitancy of public has to be addressed on COVID-19 vaccination process. We have to provide correct, consistent, and timely information on the new COVID-19 vaccine, as has been told earlier also, because we have two now in Indian context, but we will have, two are not going to be sufficient at all. And we have to look at, from the perspective of not only availability of various vaccines, but also from the perspective of that whether we can expand them to children, because keeping in view that now we are going to deal with mutations also. As you know, we are quite worried about the state of Kerala, which is, basically facing heavy burden of the disease still. So where, we need to look at that perspective also, and then we need to generate awareness and understanding of the phased approach of prioritizing target groups, and we have to address low risk perception of infection amongst people and build on an enabling environment to adopt and maintain COVID appropriate behavior. So this is very, very important that we need to look at that at all times after the vaccination also we need to maintain the COVID appropriate behavior. So who could be our target audiences? So obviously when we are addressing, our healthcare workers, frontline workers, people above 50 years of age and all, and people, under 50 with comorbidities, they are the first target audiences. But along with this, we have to complement with the national media and also, including traditional and digital media so that the information goes fast. We have to involve civil society organizations and professional bodies, whether they could be IAP, FOXI, or, Physicians of India or IAPSM or public health associations. And also, our, like last time we have been hearing that, why not, our parliamentarians do come forward and take the vaccine and all, but we have to understand that what is the priority as of now. The priority is our frontline workers or our healthcare workers who are day in and day out still dealing with the problem. So that's where we need to look at, it will come in a phased manner to everybody. So our target audiences, and but then, MPs and MLAs should be promoting, the use of these vaccines, including our Panchayati Raj institutions and municipalities in the local areas, academia and other alternative bodies, and medical practitioners. So even if you see the people come in your clinics and they may have come with any problem, please do talk about the vaccine part. That is important. So this is where, I listened, to Sujit, that he talked about advocacy, capacity building, media engagement, social mobilization and community engagement, and adverse events following immunization, which is now a very, very important component and which has come to the surface because this is not because of COVID-19, but we had with regard to universal immunization program, and we have for that even platform, that is electronic vaccine intelligence network, which we have adopted it now to the CoWIN platform, that is COVID-19 vaccine intelligence network. So we have to have a vaccine eagerness, trust and confidence which is inculcated in the community so that they can come forward and accept the vaccine with confidence. So what are the key components of advocacy strategies? So basically advocacy should aim at engaging maximum number of people. It should start from Honorable Prime Minister to the parliamentarians. Then, it should, go down to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, line ministries in the central government and their field level networks. It should also address professional bodies like IMA and doctors and healthcare workers, alternative medicine practitioners, Rotary and Lion Club. Wherever we are, whichever organization we belong to can act as a potential communicator to those level of persons. The national and local media representatives, public and private sector companies, and developmental partners, civil society organizations, which include also our religious and faith-based leaders. That is important part which we need to understand also. Now, another part is that how we can do the capacity building of key stakeholders. So we need to talk about, who are the important key stakeholders. They can be information, education, communication officers of the government departments. They can be our developmental partners in our different programs, like I talked of community-based organizations or WHO, UNICEF, and ITSU, that is basically we are talking of technical support, immunization technical support unit. Then key officials from ministries of I have already discussed about PRIs, human resource development, urban development, women and child development, railways, and labor, amongst others. And then we need not forget about what are the community-based organizations, frontline workers, but we need to find out who are the influencers. Because in Kerala, when I was looking at the number of people who suffered from the disease and are suffering from the disease, if you look at the top 3 districts, you will have less number of influencers as compared to the districts which are having, out of 12 districts, 3 districts which are topmost are having less number of volunteers or frontline workers. So it is important. Then we need to look at the staff of COVID-19 national and state helpline call centers, which is 1075 and 104. Another important part is that what are the key actions at the national level? Now, this is from the module of Government of India. That means we have developed a communication training package for IC officer on communication planning. We have also developed a community uh, building module on social mobilization for ASHAs, ANMs, and Anganwadi workers. And those of you who have had the experience of training, already, these workers have undergone a standardized level training. And there has been a national level of training of trainers. Then, we went on to state level training of trainers. And then we also, did capacity building of national level of and state helplines, number 1075 and 104 call center staff, so that they can give right information. Then conducting social media briefing for social media managers like representative of State Information Bureau or Information Education Communication Bureau, etc. The training of master trainers to conduct state and district level sessions for training frontline workers and other cadres of communication has already been conducted. So whatever has to be communicated, that has already been told. And we need to identify national level partners, including, when we talk of the state level, building communication alliance or interfaith alliance or Red Cross to adopt the capacity building package to reach through their networks. Now, so similarly, we are going to follow these actions at the state level, and then state has to organize training for district collectors, MLAs, MPs, etc. And we need to look at, basically conducting the training on social mobilization and interpersonal communication for social mobilizers to the local context, because you see what will be applicable to, as I told you, Uttar Pradesh may not be definitely applicable to Bihar or to Chhattisgarh or to Delhi. So that is important, that we need to identify the social mobilizers from the local place so that accordingly the mobilization can be done. And we need to have the social media briefing for communication officers and managers and training of master trainers to conduct state and district level training. Another thing is that we need to look at the social media analytics and marketing training for social media managers and information education and communication officers as well. So these are some of the important components of that. Now, again, this will percolate down to the district level. Now, at the district level, again, we have to identify online and in-person training platforms at district level by organizing the district level trainings, including the workshops, which will train the healthcare workers, frontline workers, supervisors, and important stakeholders from the key line departments. And then, sensitization workshops are also very important for the chief district medical officer, immunization officer, district IC officers from line departments, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Panchayati Raj institutions and all that. And we do not stop at this point. We have to go further for the refresher trainings for frontline workers, because as we go down, please remember that now only we are at the topmost level. That means we are now targeting only at the healthcare workers, and so is the vaccine hesitancy which has emerged, but gradually it is declining as more and more of us are coming forward to take the vaccine. So that is important part of it. And earlier, as I told you, that now we are even, including more number of people who come to the, vaccination sites. If there are 110, having them, and if there are lesser number of workers, we don't mind having, looking at the list and recruiting more people for taking the vaccine. Then again, we need to look at, what are the key actions at the block level. We have to identify online platforms and in-person training platforms for block level training. And then, at the block level only, we train our frontline workers, social mobilizers and all that. Then also it is very important to have, the interperson, how do, ASHAs, Anganwadi workers or ANMs and local doctors, all of you please ask this question to yourself, that how do you address everyone regarding this COVID-19 vaccine? Rather than talking only about the efficacy part and all that, let us discuss far more. It has got a science behind it. So it is important to look at that part. Then we need to look at the, as we have organized this meeting, it is very important to have this level, that kind of sensitization workshop meetings for the medical officers, then line departments and PRI, self-help group people, etc. So with a complete package, but remember, one package will not fit all. So one size does not fit all. We have to keep that in mind. Another thing is that we need to strengthen mass media, social media. We need to look at also international media, social mobilization. We always remember community is your important partner, and have the spokespersons from the community itself who have had a experience of immunization. So that is important part. And for COVID-19 vaccine rollout, media and social media, they play a very, very critical role. So they become our key stakeholders, whether they are media houses at the national level, state level, or their senior editors, health education and business journalists, and media from the regional Delhis and local Delhis. So it is important to look at all of them as well. Now, if we look at what are the key actions at the national level, we have already got the National Media Rapid Response Cell, and we are using all kinds of platform, that is print media, electronic media, digital media, etc. Now, always remember that we need to have, if we want this program to be successful, we need to be very proactive in terms of our messaging. That means we need to build a positive media narrative by, first of all, media also. If somebody calls you from media, do not just give a very fast information that this much has been the coverage and this and that and just finish it off. No, media people will be bothering you, but spend few minutes with them as to, they communicate appropriate information, whether they are, belonging to different newspapers or they're belonging to, different channels of TV. Make very, very important, this is one of the important things where, I feel that you communicate something, because this is my little experience of about, since the time we started with the vaccination, that you may communicate something, they write something. So it is important that you must sensitize them appropriately. Today only, somebody came and they said that, madam, we can do, 20 lakh individuals a day and we can immunize. I said, definitely you can do that. But you see how the whole process was explained to, her by me, that you see, we have got ultimately 29,000 cold chain points, and we need to, look at that, even if we do 100 at the each point, and this is, I'm only talking of 29,000 cold chain points at the whole country level. And if we open them up, and we need to have our key partners as the private partners, government partners who come up together. But then most important is you must spend some time and build a positive media narrative. Another important thing is that you must have a, approved key messages and frequently ask questions to, guide the messages, and have your talking points, collaterals, and creative content. And then build a positive public discourse so that people come forward to you. And that's where each one of us, has to talk about. There is a science behind everything. But remember that this science behind everything uh, has to be tailor made according to the persons what they are. Your science will vary for the, layman, it will vary for the frontline worker, it will vary for a common man with comorbidities. So please remember that, if a person comes with comorbidities, he has got a lot of questions in his or her mind. So you must spend some time with that person and develop short videos, under 60 seconds and all, and graphics and all that, and simple explanations to enable easy understanding amongst the urban and rural audiences. Then again, you need to develop the folk, social media toolkits, etc., to share with the partners for wider reach. And then, you must influence networks to amplify the core messages. Like if you will say just, vaccine or virus, the choice is yours. So just, in a simple language, you must explain to them that what does it mean accordingly, so you can, take, your message to far and wide. Then what are the key actions at the state level? So as I said, that you need to have the state level influencers, which are there for interviews, short videos, and opinion articles they can write, and development of positive stories and testimonials from the beneficiaries, like what we people are doing, like, day in and day out, those of us who have taken the vaccine. And you must engage media to establish vaccine confidence and share positive example of vaccine acceptance. That is important part of it. And then, every state has to have a state cell from where the responsible communication goes away. Now, what are the key actions at the district level? We have to monitor the district level publications, the social media handles, the Twitter handles and all that, media monitoring becomes very, very important. Like every time you listen that the ministry has deleted these many Twitter handles and all, which are going in a wrong way. So it is important to look at that we need to have a responsible communication at all levels, and we must disseminate the human interest stories at the district level with the focus on access prioritization. So we need to also say that, who are going to be our priority groups again and again, and then engage the media to establish vaccine confidence, share positive examples of vaccine acceptance, and engaging district level influencers, which can be your MLAs, faith leaders, and doctors, and alternative system of medicine people, faith healers, and all, which I've talked, amply at this point of time. Another important thing is that WhatsApp, for proactive messaging plays a very, very important role. We are very fond of circulating those messages which have got a negative connotation. That this is where, the incidents has happened. So many people, they collapse after this and all that. So that is where, we have to engage WhatsApp champions. They can be the school principals. They can be, we already had, I remember a few months back, Dr. Sanjeev was also there. We had talked in depth about, RWS and their role in COVID-19. Now there, RWS are our important champions also, and important chairpersons also, who can disseminate information and counter misinformation. So that is where we can utilize WhatsApp as an important platform to strategically disseminate the information. Another important thing is that we need to not only look at the Indian media, we need to look at the international media also. Last week, I was just looking at, people are very interested. Two of them, they came to me from French media and from German media, exactly, how India is rolling out this big program, how, because we are a big country, everybody is interested in us. And then again, we need to look at that when we organize a virtual or in-person visits with the international media following, COVID appropriate behavior guidelines to the storage unit vaccination centers, we need to showcase our preparedness and systems in place. Again, as I said to these people also, we need to talk about the post-vaccine stories also, and pitch human interest stories of people who have already been inoculated. So that is another important part which we need to look at. Then another thing is that we need to manage crisis emergency from AFI, as has been already told earlier, and we need to address the issue of vaccine hesitancy, which can be because of rumors, it can be because of plain indifference or misinformation from anti-vaccination groups or lobbies and all that. And like something we had from a particular lobby that this is made out of pig and all that. So you see, we need to go into the science of everything. But remember that, we doctors, or or our healthcare professionals, or our religious leaders, they have the different ways of looking at things differently according to their own this thing. But we need not get perturbed, and we need to explain everything in a manner in which they can understand. And then again, certain geographies or communities might continue to resist accepting the vaccine owing to their long-standing aversion to vaccination. Like when I went to US and I was looking at the church lobby was very much against universal immunization program as well. When they had this measles outbreak, then gradually they started looking at the universal immunization program from a different perspective. So, and also look at, you see now so many 1.5 million doses of vaccine went waste in USA. So you need to, kind of look at that no country is different. And so far, India has given a very wonderful example of how we proceed ahead in a systematic manner. It's a real big country with lot of challenges, and we still have, been able to maintain our standard treatment protocols. We have been able to keep our mortality low, and we have been able to deliver the vaccines in time as has been promised. And effective leadership, remember, not only at the prime minister's level, but at every level plays a very, very critical role. So that these things are very important. So, vaccine hesitancy will have some key messages that vaccination saves lives at every stage of life. Immunization has been the greatest public health success story. As of now, whether we talk in context of children, whether we talk in context of pregnant mothers, we have to look at this part. Then vaccine provides immunity and protects us and our communities from contracting diseases. You can give examples of smallpox. You can give examples of, polio elimination and all that. And in context of COVID, it is critical for us to get COVID-19 vaccine whenever our turn comes, so that we can protect ourselves, our families, friends, and communities from the infection. The vaccine process will be phase one. We need to assure adherence to COVID appropriate behavior at all times. Even if we get the vaccine, it is important to talk about COVID appropriate behavior, because right now we are dealing with a new virus. We are also dealing with the mutant strains, and you see now Government of India has come out with the guidelines for dealing with the mutant strains also, and that is where, and we should not leave at any cost. This is the message from the doctor community, that even if we are having cases, so testing and contact tracing still, our basic approaches should not change. COVID-19 vaccines have been developed all throughout with the scientific research and are introduced to public after undergoing various trials. And first and foremost important thing is that they are safe. Everybody should be talking of safety, because each one of us is scared of dying. That is number one thing. Number two comes the rest of the things, and even people who have suffered from the disease must come forward to take the vaccine. It is true that COVID-19 vaccine has been developed in a very short frame of time, because we have this time shown an example that if we cut all the channels, that is where, we can develop, the vaccines in the shortest possible period of time without compromising on the different phases of trial. But use of the vaccines, because they have undergone the protocols of various levels of trials following due scientific processes after due diligence. All safety protocols have been followed, and there have been no compromises in bringing vaccine to the general public. As I said, important part is your safety and efficacy tests, which have been done on the vaccines which are available, and the regulatory approval has been given after all required checks have been confirmed. While administering the vaccine, all safety protocols, even including COVID appropriate behaviors, should be followed at the vaccination centers and at the vaccination sites. And please just do not, even as doctors, sometimes we tend to be careless. Please do not leave your COVID appropriate behavior, and make sure that your patients are also following the same, whether they are vaccinated or not. And after vaccination also, please do not forget to communicate this message. And all vaccinators have been adequately trained in vaccine safety protocols and need to follow COVID appropriate behavior. So these are some of the information leaflets, that is role of religious leaders, influencers, social mobilizers, and role of volunteers, which have been released by the ministry. And lastly, I will talk about some of the important key messages about COVID-19 vaccine. That is, I have already told about that vaccine is safe. Vaccine should be done along with COVID appropriate behavior, should be followed at all times. Pre-registration is a must for the eligible beneficiaries. Vaccine will not be given to the individuals who are not registered. That is important part of it. That means, you see, when it is open to the public also, so we have to see that first the electoral platform will be, utilized. The second part is that we need to see that whether we are using Arogya Setu app, or we are contacting our block level medical officers, or we are, contacting our frontline workers. So everyone should get this information that you are there in the vaccination list, those of who are not app savvy. So gradually, you see, this information has to come to everyone so that they get registered. Registration process will be guided by the mobilizers, volunteers, and when available. So as and when it is available, if you are unwell, but at the time of your second dose, it is better to wait till you have recovered, and you should try to get the second dose as soon as possible after the recovery. You should not attend a vaccination appointment if you are self-isolating or waiting for COVID-19 tests or unsure that you are not well. Complete schedule of vaccination will reduce the chances of person becoming seriously ill. So these are some of the important key messages about COVID-19 vaccine. But remember that even if you have suffered from the sickness, or on the day of vaccination, if you are sick, so please avoid the vaccine, and your chance will never go away. You can go to at the second time and get yourself vaccinated. So these are some of the important key messages which you need to know about the COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Sunila Garg. Now we move on to the question answer session. There are a set of questions in the chat box. The first question is, somebody has asked whether a certificate is being given. Unfortunately, we are not giving any certificate of participation. Then next question is, what
No. Certificate is being given. You see, once you are getting immunized, you get a certificate with your
not
name.
after your vaccination, for
This
this
is after this
webinar.
meeting.
For this webinar.
Okay.
For this webinar. Anyway, that was a good one. Thank you. Now the question is, what percentage of population needs to be vaccinated to have herd immunity to COVID-19? I think probably Dr. Sanjeev Singh can take this question.
Yes, so the ballpark number is still not a very, it is not proven, but from the previous experiences, it is understood that 70% of population needs to be vaccinated to be able to create a decent herd immunity.
Dr. Sanjeev, it is about 60%, which I read about that. The second part is that you see, another thing which we need to remember, that public should not go with this, as Boris Johnson mentioned, that more and more people will get infected, so they will provide herd immunity. It is not sure. It is not so. We have to get vaccinated in order to get the herd immunity. So that should be the message which should be going from this platform. So 60% at least is required, because we are excluding children as of now, and few percentage of people who might have been recently infected. That is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev Singh and Dr. Sunila. Now the next question is, somebody asking the question has said he has taken hepatitis B vaccine 1 week earlier. When can he take the corona vaccine?
So there is no contraindication. He can take both.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a direct question. Now, after the vaccination, is there any restriction on food and drink for a particular period? And drink, I mean alcohol, I suppose. Yes.
No restriction.
No restriction. Fantastic. Now, what is the correct dose and efficacy of Covishield vaccine? Initially, Oxford reported that half first dose and full dose more than 4 weeks apart lead to 90% efficacy, but we are taking full dose each time. What is the take of the experts? I think Dr. Suchin, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, just adding a point to the food and drinks as well. So there has been an advisory put out to avoid alcohol as much as possible for the 45 days after vaccination, because alcohol impedes your immune response. So to develop full immunity and high immune response, we should limit our alcohol intake for at least 35 days post-vaccination is the advisory that has been put out. The correct dose is, of course, the full dose twice, 28 days apart. And even after that, we will develop full immunity only 15 days after the second dose. So we will need about 6 weeks after the first dose to develop the full immune reaction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Then there's another question almost relating to this. How is it that in UK, the spacing between 2 doses is 3 months? In India, how is it? It is 28 days.
You see, in India, we are having, those 6 weeks and to 3 months is the optimum time for seroconversion. But in Indian setting, for our universal immunization program, also we keep a interval of 1 month so that people can remember and come forward for that. Otherwise, if you delay it by, let's say by 1.5 months to 6 weeks, it's or 3 months, it better is going to be the seroconversion. That is important part. With the more time it is, but then in our setting, people will not come forward and they will forget to take the vaccine. So that's why we keep a time interval of 1 month, and that is true for children as well under universal immunization program.
Thank you, madam. The next question would be, is the vaccine being administered in India effective against the new strain being seen in UK?
Yeah, this is particularly true with regard to Covaxin. And today now only an article has come, with regard to Covaxin. And I particularly went to see that I have followed this trial also very effectively. But then today article has been there where, they have tested this Covaxin for the mutant strains and it has been found to be effective. But people are more skeptical about that because they keep talking more about the efficacy and this, that, and they say that this has been given more to the central government institutions and all. I think we have to come out of this because it's a kill vaccine, it's a wholesale vaccine, and it is very safe also. That is important, and it works against the mutant strains.
Thank you. You can take the next question too. When do you expect the UK strain to come to India? Some very pessimistic question.
It is no, but it has already come. We have got 10 genomic sequencing laboratories, and which have, under the guidance of NCDC, and for each laboratory is linked to a state, and which we have found that there is a UK strain in India, but then, the transmissibility is high, but then the infectivity or severity of the disease is less.
Now, as the immunity is short-lived, the propaganda on sanitization and use of masks should continue. Is it a sort of a scientifically based statement?
See, that is one thing is very important is that you need to, because if you will remember the case of Haryana's health minister, he had been, given a vaccine. We don't know whether it was in a trial group or he was in a main group. That means he was in a placebo group or in the main group. But then, he developed the infection after 15 days. So let us presume that, because as has been pointed out by predecessors also, that it takes time to develop the immunity. And then again, we are, this is a new virus. We are learning a lot of new things. So COVID appropriate behavior, we are learning about mutations also. So that's where our genome sequencing laboratories are also now being activated to look at, mutations part also. So till we are very clear about the whole thing, COVID appropriate behavior should be followed up for quite a period of time.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. And with that, I would request
to be very simple.
Dr. Suchin, you want to add something?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me? So I was just saying that the communication that we are giving out needs to be very simple. So we, as an organization at Project Stefan, have devised a very simple communication comparing the vaccine to a seat belt, right? So there are 7 points to it. So the first is, does the seat belt prevent you from getting an accident? No, right? So the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting an infection. But if at all, if we get into an accident, does the seatbelt prevent you from having severe injuries? So yes, the vaccine will prevent you from having a severe infection.
Very good.
Does wearing the seatbelt mean you can drive recklessly and fast? So no. So that also same, having the vaccine does not mean that you behave recklessly. You still have to follow appropriate COVID behavior like masks, social distancing, and sanitization. Does a seatbelt mean you can't injure others on the road? No. So that is why even after you are vaccinated, you can still infect others, right? So that means, does the seatbelt itself can cause problems? Yes, rarely, of course. You have seatbelt injuries, right? Colonic injuries, peritoneal injuries. So that is a rare case. Also, vaccination can rarely cause similar injuries to you. So will you wear a seatbelt while driving? Of course you will, right? So that is why, of course, you should get vaccinated. So simple communications like this go a long way in spreading the message about correct behavior post-vaccination as well.
Thank you, Dr. Suchin. Thank you very much. That's a good corollary.
Yes,
good corollary.
We should circulate this far and wide.
Yeah. May I now request Dr. Girdhar Gyani, our Director General, to now to sum up the webinar and also to thank the speakers. Dr. Girdhar Gyani, sir.
We have already gone past 5 o'clock, but the webinars which I have been attending, I can safely give 9.7 out of 10 to the webinar. Point 3, of course, we have to keep for the. This is fantastic, I tell you. The way Sachin started, the kind of science which he provided in a very simple language, I think all of us understood fantastically. And Dr. Srila, of course, is a master in communication and, overcoming the hesitancy, which was the objective of this webinar. Sanjeev, as usual, of course, created a scare first by titling Adverse. Why thought he was talking adverse impact. but anyway, he beautifully came out, the reporting matter of this one. So all in all, I think wonderful event. And one comment which is there, that somebody asked about the alcohol. So Sanjeev Singh gave clearance. Go ahead. But Sachin later on disappointed them by. So I think all in all, I think I must say, I really enjoyed. I am sure all of the participants enjoyed. Thank you very much to all the three distinguished speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
Gurudhargyani,
Thank
sir,
you.
and all the participants, and of course, to all the speakers. It was a wonderful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank
If
you.
we can share the slides with them, that will be much better if they want to. So that
Yeah,
will be-
please. Yeah, if the speakers can share the slides, we will share it with those who are interested so that the message goes across. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.